coming to our meeting. I know it took a bit of effort to get ready and come on out, but I think by the time the night's over, you'll find it a really good night. So I would then call this meeting to order, and I'm just amazed how many people are here. We had no idea how many people were going to show up for this meeting, and we said, you know, if only a few people show up, well, we may take our idea and go home. But when I see a whole crowd like this, it's going to be pretty hard to do that. So we're really impressed with the numbers that are here. Thanks so much for coming. So I think we'll start off tonight by introducing the committee that's kind of got this rolling in the first place. And the first guy here is Craig Beacock, and he's a successful businessman here in Elmvale. He was a previous owner of Beacock's Auto. He's a lifelong resident, and so he's very concerned about what we're looking at here, and that's Craig Beacock. Beside Craig is Rosemary Johnston. She's a retired elementary school teacher, and she has a lot of insight on where we need to go with this thing. My name is Sam Lang, and I help operate a farm out towards the City Beach, and along with my family that work there with us. And what got me going on this was my parents. And when it came time for them to move off the farm, there was really no place when they couldn't live alone at home for them to go in this Elmvale area. So they had to go to Barrie. And my dad hated every minute that he lived in Barrie because it wasn't home. And after he lived there for 3 years and his needs increased, then he moved back to the Sarah Vista, and he said, "Oh, I'm home. I'm home back in Elmvale." And that's what's kind of driving me on this thing, is to create something here in Elmvale that is good for the people. Now we have some special guests here with us tonight, and we have Mayor-elect Dawn Allen is here. Dawn, you want to stand up and say hi? And we have the councillor-elect for Ward 1, George Cabral. Where did George? That's great. So these are the people that are going to take the message back to council about the enthusiasm that we have here tonight, and that'll be great. Now, is Sandra McConkey here? I don't think so. And Duncan McDonald. Sandra McConkey was going to represent Alex Nuttall, our MP. And Duncan McDonald was going to be here as a representative of Doug Downey, but they may join us maybe later in the evening. So this meeting tonight has 4 things that we want to accomplish. I want to tell you what our vision statement is, and that's kind of a summary of where we see this thing going. I want to tell you about Tollendale, and that's a very successful seniors residence on the south side of Barrie. And what we really want to do is get your ideas about what you think you'd like to have in a seniors retirement home here. We're talking about the size of the units, we're talking about how many bedrooms you want, we're talking about where you want it, all those sorts of things. So we want to hear from you and learn as much as we can about what you think. And then I want everybody to complete a survey, because that's how we're going to have to decide on a lot of these questions, is through the surveys that you're filling out. And when you're done, you can put the surveys in the box at the back of the room. But if you don't get them done tonight, and it should take you less than 20 minutes to do it. So if you just want to stay in your seats after the meeting's done and finish your survey, you can put it in the box at the back of the table. But then we're going to take that box over to the library. And if you have to take it home for someone that's not here, or you know someone that would have been here but they can't be, then please take 1 or 2 home for them, and then when they complete it, it can be left at the library. So that's a very, very vital part of this meeting is those surveys that you're looking at. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce Mr. Sid. What are we doing? Oh, the vision statement. Thank you, Sid. This is our vision statement. And we're trying to build a community. That's the first 4 words. And we're not trying to build a building. We're trying to build a community of people who, when they live together, their lives will be enriched. And you're just by being with people of roughly the same age, And you can talk about Perry Mason, and you can talk about Howdy Doody and all that sort of things, and people will know what you're talking about. And you share with one another, like you understand where people are, and you hear about their families and the joyous things that happen in their lives and the sad things that happen too. And so you get a support from living together like that. And we want to plan activities in this building that's going to diminish isolation and loneliness. Some people say, I'm going to live in my house till I have to carry out here in a tiny box. Well, that may be fine for them, but think about the opportunity to be with other people and be able to interact with them every day and talk about things that are important, and go on bus trips and enjoy sports together and all that sort of thing. Like, it's so much more enriching when you're living in a community that really cares about one another. So we're trying to diminish isolation and loneliness. And then all of our actions are going to reflect the principles of human compassion, equality of all people. Doesn't matter who you are, what color, size, shape, except age. And age is going to be the limiting factor here. And we want selfless giving and genuine caring among the people that live there. So we're trying to develop a community more than we are just a building in some place to hang your hat. Okay, on to number 3 already. So I'd like to introduce Sid Chersma. And Sid grew up on the 6th concession of Floss Township. He went to Victoria School, and after that he came to Elmvale District High School, and that's where I met Sid. And Sid and I were together in high school for 5 years, and then Sid went on to become a civil engineer, and I went on into the career in farming. And hadn't had much to do with Sid, but over the years, Sid ran a very successful engineering company. And then back quite a few years ago, Tollendale idea came up, and Sid, being the engineer, he was the project manager when Tollendale was built. And then after it was built, Sid managed Tollendale for about 9 years after that. So he knows Tollendale in and out. And he's going to tell us a bit about how Tollendale got started and the very successful place they have there now. So I'll give you Sid Chersma.
I won't hold your applause until after you hear what I say. Anyway, thank you, Sam, for that introduction. I did have the privilege, and still do have the privilege, of being involved with Tollendale Village. So I was kind of excited when Sam called me up one day. He'd read an article in your local Springwater News about what we're doing at Tollendale. We're looking at building a new facility, a new campus. And he said, Sid, would you be interested in giving us some advice and letting us know what we should be doing? And I said, sure. If I can help anybody look after our seniors, I said, I'd be pleased to do that. So I got in touch with Sam, and I have to admit that this is probably the first project I've worked on with Sam in about 55 years, since our last project for Mr. Williams in science class. So thank you all. I'm going to sit down so I won't block anybody's view, and I'll take you through about a 15-minute story of Tollendale. I do want to mention that one of our board of directors is here as well, Harry Ices, who was also instrumental in getting Tollendale Village off the ground, and we're both accompanied by our wives, and without them, we wouldn't have been able to do what we've been able to do. So. First of all, I wanted to ask, how many people here are familiar with Tollendale Village in Barrie? How many are on the waiting list? Oh, there are some. I think there's room for a number of seniors facilities that we don't have to worry about, the Elmvale facility taking residents away from Tollendale. So, anyway, so that's good. So many people are familiar with Tollendale. So what exactly is Tollendale? It's a multi-use seniors retirement complex in Barrie. It was established in 1987 as a non-profit, and in 1996 became a registered charity. Since the year 2000, Tollendale has been providing 284 units of affordable housing for seniors in Barrie at virtually no cost to the public purse. So we didn't receive any money from any of the levels of the government. Was all funded by private means of the financing. And since 2010, we've also operated a 160-bed nursing home. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Tollendale, this is Tollendale Village as it exists right now. The street in front of you, it's called Hearst Drive. And you'll see a number of apartment buildings, some semi-detached homes, and a large building in the front is our 160-bed nursing home. So just a brief history. In 1996, we purchased 17 acres in South Barrie. Then we retained an architect to develop a concept plan. We had to go to the city for rezoning, etc. And we worked with the neighborhood and received their support by incorporating a number of their suggestions. When you're doing a project like this, it's always important to get the neighbors on side. And so we met with them several times, and we incorporated some of their suggestions, and in the end, they supported us wholeheartedly. So then we promoted the project throughout the area. We developed a financial plan and came across a new 10-year concept called a life lease, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But we also set it up that you could rent a unit or a combination of a life lease and rental. So in the meantime, we went to the supporting community to raise funds for the construction of phase one. We went to the community and said, for those of you that are interested in loaning us money to get this thing off the ground, we'll pay you interest, and but we wouldn't pay you back until after occupancy. And we did that all in the form of an unsecured promissory note. It was basically a promise that we would pay them back, and we were very successful in that. If I recall correctly, we raised $3 or $4 million in a matter of 2 or 3 months. And then the balance of the funds for construction were supplied by a conventional lender. So we commenced construction on phase one in 1998, when 65% of the units were reserved. And that's a portion that I show there that was built in 1998, opened in 2000 for a total of 86 units. Then we added a second phase, which was opened in, we started construction in 2000, and again, when 65% of its units were reserved, we started construction on that. And then in phase 3 and 4, we started that construction in 2002 because we had more people needed space than we had available even in the first 2 phases. So then we added another 132 units. And so that's the full village that you have there now. In 2009, we started construction of a long-term care nursing home facility, and that was completed in late 2010. That's not 2011, but 2010. So that's 160 beds, and I believe it's the largest nursing home in the city of Barrie. So included in the facilities, we have a number of amenities throughout the complex. We have a large auditorium that can hold 300 or 400 people. We have a coffee shop. We have a large woodworking shop, hair salon, library with computer, games and exercise rooms, obviously the administration center. We also provide basic nursing assistance, and we also have a chaplaincy program. So some of the challenges that we faced when we first started off, one of the initial challenges was finding an initial lender. We had this new concept called life lease, and lenders were very leery about lending us money on that basis because it was new to them, and they had no idea how this was going to work. But we were able finally to find a mortgage broker who was willing to lend us the money on the requirement that we also get CMHC insurance, which we were able to do. One of the other challenges was convincing the legal community. They needed instructing about how the life lease concept worked. We required all of our tenants to get independent legal advice, so we were assured that they knew what they were getting into. So we had to do a lot of educating with the lawyers in town. And then we had to find a way to manage the waiting list, because we had people that were ready to move in and people that said, we'd like to move in the future. So we developed something called one waiting list, but we have an active and inactive component, where the active people on the waiting list are ready to move in as soon as there's a unit available, and the inactive are ones that are on the waiting list but are not quite ready yet to move in. And of course, another challenge is to ensure compliance with legislation, because it's always changing. So how does the life lease system work? We have something called a fixed value life lease. So the price of the unit is determined by the total cost of the unit, which includes construction, land, architectural fees, development charges, everything that goes into the cost of the facility. And so that determines the price of your unit. Because we're a not-for-profit organization, we don't add any profit, and the resident pays the full value of the price. They also pay a monthly accommodation fee that covers utilities, taxes, maintenance, parking, and things of that nature. And then the residents sign what's called a life lease agreement, and this allows the resident to stay in their unit for as long as they wish. And when the unit is vacated, 98% of the price is returned to the resident. We retain 2% to allow us to refurbish the apartment and to cover some expenses associated with that. But the ownership is retained by Tollendale. And this allows Tollendale to be in charge of, making sure that the vision is continually adhered to in the mission. And so, under this scenario of the life lease, we're able to do that. Now, some people have said, well, if I only get back what I put in, what if the market increases? And that's a legitimate question, and there are some life lease facilities in Barrie that operate that way. But we felt that it was important to make sure the unit stayed affordable rather than being priced by the market, and that has turned out to be very successful. We also found that many people, once they move in, they're not as concerned about making the highest return that they possibly can on their investments. They would prefer to have some security that they're going to get pretty well all of their money back. And so there's no need to increase the price for the next residents, as the costs have been covered in the initial instance. So that's worked out very, very well. So what did we do for marketing? To promote the facility, we initially met with seniors organizations, various church communities, and word of mouth spread. We developed a website, and today, and we have for a number of years now, organized monthly tours. So what are the reasons for our success, as people call it? And we believe Tollendale is a successful venture. I think the main reason that I would say is that within the village we have developed it. The residents have developed a spirit of community. There's many opportunities for residents involvement, and that's what strikes people when they first move in or get familiar with Tollendale. Our prices are affordable because there's no profit motive. We have a range of unit sizes for people that want a small one-bedroom or a large two-bedroom plus a den. We believe the site is well managed, it's well maintained. At least we get those kinds of responses from many people. Actually, the mayor of the city of Barrie, Jeff Lehman, often refers to Tollendale as the diamond in the crown of the city of Barrie. So. And of course, location is always important. So where Tollendale is, it's a quiet setting. It's near shopping, it's public transportation. And so those are some of the reasons for our success. And so what are the results of our success? We have a long waiting list. We have a waiting list at the moment for approximately 1,000 units. And so as a result of that, we're looking seriously at developing a new facility. And we own some land in the town of Innisfil, and we're currently proposing a major $200 million facility. We're currently going through the planning process with Innisfil, and we hope to have some indication in the early part of the new year whether we will be successful in convincing the planning departments and councils that this project should proceed. And the fact that we have been so successful has also helps us in facilitating obtaining financing for the new development. Now the financial institutions are knocking on our door because we've been so successful. Whereas when we first started Elmvale 1, it was hard to find somebody to do that. So this is just a schematic of our new facility that we're proposing for Elmvale 2 in Innisfil. There's about 400 individual apartments, 160-bed nursing home, and a 52-bed assisted living facility, and all included on about 20-some acres of open space, and we also have about 15 acres of woodlot, which we're not touching. So that's in a nutshell what Elmvale Village is all about, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
So we're looking for questions not only for Tollendale, but questions about how we would develop such a thing here in Elmvale. And it's going to be on a lot smaller scale than what Tollendale was able to do, of course. But we still need...
Use that one's better.
that one better?
That one better. What's on?
Better talk fast. Whoa. You better talk fast. The batteries are going on this thing. Okay. So there's got to be a lot of questions from you guys, and you got to understand that we're in a really early stage of this project. That we only started this thing about the 1st of September, and this is December, so we're just feeling our way along. And what we're really looking for is we're going to pursue this idea until we hit a roadblock that we can't get over. And if we do hit that roadblock, that'll be the end of it because we can't get over it. But we haven't found that roadblock yet, and maybe it's going to be difficult to get over, but we're going to try our best to make it work. So what's on your mind? What do you think? Sure.
I sort of came here expecting to see something that would be proposed for Elmvale. Is there any like proposal or blueprints or anything in the works for Elmvale? I've heard rumors.
We don't have a plan yet. We don't know where we're going to build. It'll depend a lot on how big a unit you want. If you want 50 units, maybe it'll go in this location, but if you want 75, it'll need more land, so it'll be somewhere else. So we're looking at 3 or 4 sites, but we really don't know which one is going to serve our needs the best. And this isn't just for Elmvale. This is for this part of Springwater. And like we're looking at Wyvale and even Apple. And so we'll take in anybody from anywhere. And if your mom happens to come from London, Ontario, and you just moved here and bought one of the new houses in town, and you want to move your parents here to Elmvale, right now there's no place for that. And so we would hope to be able to fill that niche as well. So some things are going on.
Just wondering, in Tollendale, you said there's a monthly fee for maintenance, etc. How much does that go up? Obviously, it must go up every year. How much would it go up? Approximately, what is it? And I understand it can be very different or somewhat different.
Well, in Tollendale, we have a very wide range of units. We have small 1-bedroom units, we have 2-bedroom units, we have large 2-bedroom units, and we have 20 semi-detached units. Now, the smallest 1-bedroom unit, the monthly fee is about $500 a month. Now, that covers all your taxes, covers your utilities, usually covers things like parking, your administration, all of those kinds of things. So the big one in there is taxes and utilities. And then the larger units, they can run up to about $950.
But that makes sense.
Right. But every year it's reviewed, and then based on the tax rate in the city and hydro costs, it's adjusted annually. But we found over the last
we have extra people using the facilities, sewer and water and that sort of thing. And as far as I know, when the sewage plant was developed here in Elmvale, they had set aside a certain amount of capacity in that sewage system for such a development as this. So it really shouldn't affect taxes at all. We'll be paying our water bill the same as everybody else does, and so I don't think that would have any impact on that either. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any ideas of where in town? I've got it depending on the size, but you are going to, you said Wydale. I didn't know if you were talking about people coming. You're planning on keeping it around the village.
It'll be within the settlement boundary of Elmvale, because what they want, of course, the province of Ontario says you have to redevelop everything that's inside the settlement before they allow you to build anything outside the settlement. And so there are several properties within Elmvale itself that would that could be considered, I think, for this building. And, Go ahead, we're going to have a great conversation. Yeah.
When do you see, and I understand again that you've got the survey just started, tonight's just kind of the beginning here. When conceivably could you see it starting? Are we talking 5 years down the road kind of thing, or are you hoping to start it sooner?
Yeah, the question is timeline on how fast this can happen, and it depends, first of all, on what property we look at buying. And if we have to change zoning on the property, then that takes a longer time. And if we have to buy a piece of property that's already zoned properly, that would speed the thing up. I'm an eternal optimist, and I think you could have it probably up in 3 years. Sid, on the other hand, says it'll be 5, because he knows. So, yeah. And so don't take what I say, but take what Sid says. And I just can't. He says the actual construction, from when you put a backhoe in the ground until you move in, has got to be in excess of a year. And so we know we've got that timeline for us. And so, more questions? Yeah.
I'm interested in the timeline as far as vacancies that have they found in Tollendale that the waiting list for immediate entry is held up because people are still living in the units and haven't passed into another area.
Tollendale we have 284 units of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. And our experience over the last, since we started, which was in our first building was occupied in the year 2000, we're averaging 24 to 25 units vacancy per year. So that's how quickly that they get turned over. Now we have 1,000 units on our waiting list, so that's about 40 years of waiting. And that's why we're anxiously trying to get the next facility. But it's about a 6% turnover rate per year. So we never have any problem finding a resident when somebody moves up. So since we started, we've never had a vacancy. Yes, ma'am.
How are the resales handled by the owner, in quotation marks, or by the, not a corporation, but the Tollendale itself?
I think if I understand you correctly, you're wondering how the sales are handled?
The resales.
The resales.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens if somebody decides that they want to move out for whatever reason, whether they have to move to a nursing home, assisted living facility, or they want to move to one of their children, or in the event that they pass away. They give us 60 days notice, and then we repay them after 60 days. Whatever they put in, we repay them after 60 days.
Oh, I see. So it's not a sale from the outside coming in?
No. You turn a unit back into Tollendale, and Tollendale then approaches the next resident on the waiting list.
I see. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The 2%, or the 2% that you hold back is for fixing up the units for the next owner. What about a fund required
we have a very significant reserve fund. And every resident pays into that. That's part of their maintenance fee. We build a reserve fund up, and that's reviewed about every 5 years by experts to make sure we have enough funds in place to cover major expenditures down the road. So it's a very significant fund, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, ma'am.
Do the residents have, are they able to prepare their own meals in their own units, or
Yes.
is
The
there a central?
facility that we currently have is independent living. It's regular apartments, just like you find anywhere else. We do have a dining room currently where we serve a meal one evening a week on Friday nights. But basically, people look after their own meals. But in the new facility, we hope to have assisted living where there will be dining room available and people will be able to get 3 meals a day.
That's certainly one of the problems that we're going to have as a committee, is trying to decide how many independent living units and how many assisted living. And assisted living is meals, but it's looking after medication as well. And but even if you're in an independent living, you can get a PSW to come in and help you. You can get a physiotherapist. This will be all extra cost on yourself. You can get Meals on Wheels. So you can be your needs can increase even in independent living. And if we were going to go to assisted living and we had to provide meals, we'd sure like to partner with Sarah Vista, because they're the experts at meals and cooks and servers and all this sort of thing. And we've spoken to them on a couple of different occasions, and they're quite keen on partnering with us if we did decide to go for assisted living. But your assisted living apartments would only have a microwave and a sink, whereas the independent living ones would have more of a galley kitchen where you've got cupboards and dishwashers and stuff like that. And that's besides your wife, guys, okay? Dishwashers, like mechanical dishwashers, okay? Right. This side over here has been pretty quiet. Do you have any questions over here? Well, we'll start here. Yeah?
What was the approximate cost or the construction cost per unit based on Tollendale?
Just for a ballpark figure, if you're going to build a 50-unit facility, you're looking at about $14 million. And then you take that $14 million and you divide by the 50 units that you've got, on average, comes up to $285,000 in order to move in. So that's that's how the math works. You take the whole cost of the building and you divide by, actually you do it by square footage. So if you want a little bit, it'll be one price. If you want a big double bedroom with a den, it'll be a different price. But you take the cost of building, and that's how you can do it without, all the money you need to borrow comes from the building. So once the building is constructed and the building is fully filled with people, the whole loan is paid off, because you just divide the number of units into the whole cost of it. You think that makes sense?
Yeah, now of course the price per unit, Sam is quite right when he says $285,000, but that would be for one of the smaller units. We're looking at Tollendale 2. The average size unit would probably be closer to $340,000, $350,000 for a 1,000 or 1,100 square foot unit is what the cost would be today or tomorrow if we were to build that. Some of the smaller units would be significantly less than that, but the average 1,100,000 square foot unit would be in that order of magnitude.
And would that involve the facilities that are included, like, because you're paying for those as well, right? Like if there's an exercise room, you know.
That all be, yeah, the question was about amenities, whether amenities would be included with the price, and yes, they certainly would. Like if there's an exercise room downstairs, or if there's like all the lounges that'll be in there, and that sort of thing, the dining room, that's all included in your price. Yes, you had a question?
Yeah, how would you handle your medical needs for the facility, you know, the doctors, nurses?
Well, as you know, Dr. Zwicker is closing on December 31st, and so he's going to be gone. And speaking with some people, they wish we would have a doctor's facility as part of this facility, so that you could entice a doctor to come, and it'd be another perk for them to come to Elmvale if there wasn't already an office set up. And we're certainly open to any suggestions like that, especially if the township wanted to help us out somehow or other. I don't know, but certainly sensitive to that need in town. And what better place than a seniors residence for a doctor to locate, but we're working on it, I guess is all I can say. Question?
Are you looking at life lease only, or life lease coupled with the long-term care? Or are you doing like a trifecta with long-term care, supportive housing, and life?
At this point, we're strictly looking at life lease. To get involved and incorporate those other sectors in there at this point is not something that we have considered. It's tough enough for us to get our head around what we're doing here now. I think it's important that everybody understand we're getting tied up with Tollendale, and it's pretty impressive. But how many of you know that Elmvale is not the size Barrie? Okay? There's no way that we're going to have what they've got. We know that. We're going to try for as much as we can, but as you keep adding things that we want, and we all want everything, right? Every one of us. But as we keep adding that, the cost keeps going up. Our goal initially, I do believe, from my own point of view, was able to facilitate people at a reasonable cost. Don't make it a facility that is just for those that have and not for those that don't have. Keep costs down. If you can sell your house in Elmvale for, I don't know what the average house in Elmvale now is, $400,000 or $450,000, they're certainly going up. But if you can sell your house in Elmvale for a substantial amount of money, buy a unit in a seniors complex and still have a little bit left over, I think that would be a goal of a lot of us here tonight. So we have to kind of be realistic about what we want and what we want to expect.
What size of facility are you initially planning? Because I'm concerned, as you said, about the amenities, and if you look at what the amenities are offered at Tollendale as opposed to what would be offered maybe at a place a quarter the size, what's the give and take?
Yes, very good question. I can tell you that we wouldn't have a swimming pool. We won't have a gymnasium. We won't have, some of the things that Tollendale has. We won't have a 400-seat auditorium. That's not something that we're envisioning right now. So, in answer to your question, we don't know for sure, because that's why you've got a survey. It's, maybe we don't like filling out surveys, but I'm here to tell you, fill out the survey, because we need some help. We need that information. Do they want, how many of them want pie in the sky? How many of them just want to be able to live in a comfortable unit? I'm very thankful here tonight that I don't see too many people who live in my apartment buildings. I'd hate to see this thing go ahead and then empty my units. That'd be terrible. Yes?
Has there been given any thought as to make it like a phase type thing? Start off with the 50 units, develop further as the need grow? Is that consideration given to the property that you're looking at? Room to grow?
Yes, there's only one out of all the properties that we have been talking about or have been approached about, out of the 4 properties, there's only one that if we think this thing is going to literally explode, there's only one of those properties that we could, in fact, expand on. So yes, the consideration is there. And once this...
Same ways as Tollendale, do it phase by phase.
Right.
Grow as the need grows.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming then too that a larger initial construction would be cheaper per unit than several smaller ones.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yes, without a doubt. Yeah.
What about parking? Is it all outdoor? Would it be all outdoor? What goes on in Tollendale?
Tollendale has some unbelievable parking. They have some underground parking that is to die for, with a car wash facility, with vacuuming facilities, with. It's beautiful. Can we have that? I'm not sure you want to park your car underground in Elmvale, you probably find it full of water. So yes, there would be, Gloria, we've looked at some canopy, like carport type parking, to keep the snow and the worst of the winter off. But definitely not, we haven't looked at closed-in garages or underground parking, no. Yeah, I mean, parking's going to be dictated by the township. They're going to tell us how many parking spaces we need. They're going to tell us, you know, lots of things. Yes.
Just hopefully you have in mind, I don't have to know where they are, but if you get any of them, how far away are they to the, what we have now, the links first for the people that don't like car anymore, I want to go to Bailey or somewhere.
Yes. So the farthest piece of property is a half a mile from the stoplights, still within the growth area of town, or the, what do they call it? The settlement area. Two of them are right, one of them's on the main street, one of them's on the other street that we're looking at. So those are both within walking distance, but once again, that brings us back to our problem. Both of those properties don't allow us, once we build the unit there, there's no expansion. We couldn't go unless we went up. There'd be no expansion there.
You would have the option, though, if you were successful on a smaller property, of following their example and moving on to other smaller properties and use the same model.
That's right. And that's a great idea, Rob, and we have thought of that and are considering it too. Phase 2 could be at one of the other properties. The only dilemma with that is if you wanted to link up some of the common rooms and common areas or food services, all of a sudden it causes a bit of a problem there. But it's not impossible, yes. Larry.
Sam mentioned about possible roadblocks. I just wondered, it kind of sounded like you might have some of those roadblocks in mind, but we're sharing them with you.
Whoa, I'm not going there.
First roadblock's going to be financing. We've got to find a lot of money from somebody. And yeah, we can raise money on a local level, but at some point we're going to have to bite the bullet and look at it.
Well, I thought maybe you might be Springwater Township.
Well, yeah, that'd be a pretty good idea. It's only a loan now, it's not really an expense, but
Springwater's here to help us. I got to the town office today to pick up the key for tonight's meeting, and I said, here to pick up the key for the community hall tonight in Elmvale. Young lady says to me, oh, that's tomorrow night. I go, whoops, there's our first roadblock. Anyway, we got that straightened out right away. What else have we got? Yes?
Coming at this from a different point of view, what, in a 50-unit projected facility, what kind of staffing are you seeing? If it's not long-term care, is there some sort of, like a maintenance staffing or recreational staffing, or?
That's a great question for Sid. And that will be back, and I'm going to revert you guys back to your surveys again, because staffing is going to be, if it's assisted living, the staffing is all different. If it's standalone living, I mean, we need some janitorial staff. Sid, can you?
Yeah, the only way I can answer that is what we did when we built our first building, which was 66 units and had 20 semi-detached units. The only staff that we had at the time was somebody in charge of maintenance, and we decided right from day one that we would have a nurse on staff as well, just to assist seniors with nursing issues, even though we were not a nursing home or an assisted living home. But we did decide right away to put a nurse right on staff. So there was a maintenance person, a nurse, and I think it was a maintenance manager, and I think there was one other person that looked after cleaning the place. And so those are the only staff that we had at the beginning.
Yes?
Is there any kind of visual that we could see about Hollandale? I went to the computer this afternoon and took a look at their website, and it's really very, very interesting. But is there something that you could show at a public meeting, just exactly what we're talking about in apartment sizes and layouts and facilities and the whole works?
I'm sorry, lady, you're way ahead of us. we aren't there yet. And no, there's nothing really showed. We don't have any conceptual drawings or anything like that. We have not hired. We have our budget so far has been zero. We have not hired anybody to do anything. And,
Well, in that
this
case-
is still very much in the feasibility stage. And,
I'm sorry, Sam, but just, so right now we're at fundraising then?
no, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. You can save your millions for next year. we can try and make, no, but it's too early for that again. Like this many people, this meeting tonight is what's going to give us a shot of energy to then take it to the next step. Like we had to know whether there was support for this in Elmvale or not. Like is it really needed or not? And when we go to borrow money or we go to the township for anything, we've got to be able to say, look, we had 200 people at a public meeting here. I don't know how many's here tonight, but we've had, who was counting tonight?
I counted 123.
We had 123 people come out to a meeting, and so we want to, we want to take that message on up the line.
But I would suggest that people go to the website of Tollendale Barrie and go through that because it really gives you hope for the future.
It's a really nice facility. It really is. And we've been through it, and we're just so impressed with it. But we're impressed with the people, too, and the way that they interacted with one another. And walking down the hall, hi, how you doing? Yeah, hey, did you see that thing the other night? And the community spirit in that place is amazing. And I don't think it had a lot to do with the amenities either. Like it had to do with that group of people that were of the same mindset, and they really enjoyed living with one another. And you could sense that. It's a great place. Sure, yeah, Herman.
Banking facilities. Do these people provide banking facilities there, or are we like Elmvale? We've got a guy from Barrie who's legal beach. Every time we want to do some banking.
Banking? Yeah.
Banking facilities.
Yeah.
You got some money you'd like to put in? Or?
I would like to know where that I don't have to drive 20 miles to do.
No, at Tollendale, we're really fortunate to have a bank right on the facility.
That's why.
We're right in the facility. The other thing we have is, Sam mentioned, somebody asked about doctors' facilities.
Yeah.
We were very fortunate at Tollendale to have a doctor that was willing to move his practice into Tollendale. And when he asked to sign a lease, I said, there's one condition on your lease. We'll give you your space at a reasonable rent, but you have to agree to take every resident that moves in who doesn't have a family doctor into your practice. And he agreed to that. So that doctor's still there today, and he's been there since 2004.
Are they considering the banking facilities in this
We're open to any suggestion, Herman.
That's what I meant.
Absolutely, yeah. And if we had a financial institution that showed any interest in Elmvale, then we could work them into this facility, I think. Yeah. The same as for like medical or even like a daycare or something like that. But at this stage, there's no rules. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
This might be a crazy suggestion, but maybe some people here know people who are in Tollendale, and it might be good to phone a friend and see if you'd like to come and visit for a little while, like coffee or something.
It would be a real eye-opener if you could get a tour through Tollendale. Yeah, for sure. And just see what, and they started something the way we are.
We have tours, I think, every Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Ann? Every Tuesday, if you phone ahead, you can be scheduled in for a tour every Wednesday. They take people through the building.
Anybody else? Doug?
Where do you differentiate the age? Because if you recall, a few years ago, we had 2 senior citizen residents built in Elmvale, and they ended up not being allowed to call them seniors buildings. They're now seniors and adult living, if you didn't know that.
Okay, on that issue at Tollendale, we researched that thoroughly, and you can't differentiate or discriminate based on the basis
It makes me think of the first few meetings we had at Tollendale too.
This is Harry Ices from Tollendale. Harry's a very successful farmer down that way, and he and his family are all down there. I know Harry, and he is on the board of the directors of Tollendale. So,
And I just want to say, dream big. It's going to pay off at the end of the day. I think as we get older, we tend to shrink our mind a little bit in the sense, oh, we don't need it that big. I talked to Sam. I mean, Sam, is your farm ever big enough? No, but you've got to think big, because you've got to think of amenities and stuff like that too. And the larger you are, the more amenities you're going to have there, the more you're going to enjoy it. I think enjoying the facility has somewhat to do with the amenities that are there too. I think, you know, it's all part of it. The other big part is obviously just working together as a team. I know when we started too, we thought that financial thing was a big issue. I'll never forget, as a board, I'm not a briefcase guy, but we had to go out and look for money, and a fella from up in Collingwood called me up. I never knew him from a hole in the ground. And went in there, and he heard what we were doing. He believed in us. He looked at the board, the people that were in the board, and he was convinced they were solid people. And I left there with a $90,000 check. And I'm telling you, that's what gave me the encouragement to move forward. And I believe that will happen in this community too. You've got it. You've got the seniors here. Just go for it. It's going to happen. But think big.
well, thanks, Harry. That sounds easy to say, but we're still way back, and
Sam, we did experience it.
it's been a real learning experience for me. I'll tell you, I learned a lot of things. Yes, Reg.
Question for you, Sam. After you pour over, the committee pours over all these surveys and that, then will you come up with some kind of a concept and then have another public meeting, or wherever the next step be?
Yes, certainly. There's nothing we want more than to have everybody involved and your input all the way through this. As Sam said, this is giving us encouragement. We didn't know that we had 10 people tonight or 150, so this is great. Yes, Reg, we will try and come up with some conceptual drawings once we do the survey thing. Okay, do people want assisted living? Do they want not assisted living? And so on and so forth. And then obviously we need to make some decisions on land and so on. So finances first, location is very important, and some drawings on what can go on that site. We'll try and get on that as fast as we can. It's not going to happen overnight, kids. I can guarantee you. We've been at this a while. Can I admit that we'd almost given up a couple times? But we're fairly stubborn, so hang in there with us. And anybody that wants to join us and give us any of their input, we'd be glad to have you on board. Doug?
You spoke earlier on selling your homes and taking the money and investing it in this life lease. I know the two homes here in Elmvale, one of the requirements is to divulge all your assets before you can apply for.
That has nothing to do with this type of...
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, so Doug asked if you sell your home and you put that $400,000 in the bank and you've got $6.8 million in your savings account and so on and so forth, do you have to divulge that to anybody? No. You don't have to tell anybody. And Doug, I know that your numbers exceed that. Yes, Marlene.
You talked about a board of directors, so how does that administration, what kind of a scenario is that administration going to be?
Wow.
How do you get to the board of, like,
Very
what's it
good
made
question.
up of, or?
I have no idea, so here comes Sid again.
If I understand the question rightly, you asked what kind of corporation, or what kind of organization would be involved in operating this facility?
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I think so.
Well, at Tollendale, we incorporated an organization, a non-profit incorporation, and then we registered that as a charity. And so it's a non-profit facility. There's a board of directors that are elected by the members of the organization. People that support the cause can board of directors that is responsible for operating the facility. And because we are also a charity, we can issue donation receipts, which are tax receipts. Is that the kind of question you were asking? Okay.
It's really got nothing to do with any church in Elmvale. This is strictly, we're going to form a new corporation. The corporation will run it much like the Floss Agricultural Society. There's a president, there's a secretary, there's directors and all that sort of thing. And this is how the seniors home would be operated by. And so regardless of where the location ends up being, it'll be that corporation that runs it all.
When my parents lived at Tollendale, there was some sort of a financial campaign that I know my mother invested in something extra at Tollendale, that when she died, then the money came back to her estate. But I'm wondering if that same sort of procedure could be used if this group goes through the process of a not-for-profit and incorporation, that it would be some way of raising seed money. I can't even recall now, because of the confusion with my parents dying so suddenly together, and that what exactly it was that Mom invested in Tollendale. But I know there was a campaign to raise additional funds, and I don't know whether it was for some of the seed money for Mill Creek, or whether it was some of the money that augmented the reserves so that you were in a healthier financial situation for the maintenance costs. But it seems to me that if that was allowable under the rules for Tollendale, that it might be a source of revenue for this venture.
For sure, and if we're looking at donations, if people believe enough in this project to want to donate money, but we'll no doubt we'll be looking for loans, and they'll be at competitive rates, maybe even slightly more than competitive rates in order to construction financing and that sort of thing is always a little riskier investment, so we'd have to pay a little higher interest rate on that as well. And of course, it'd be paid off when the building was built. And so we'll be looking at all kinds of ways to raise the funds once we get to that point. And yeah, John?
What's the status of the financing for Innisfil, and what are the components of that? Where's that at, the $200 million?
The question is, what's the status of financing on the next village in Tollendale? We're looking at a $200 million project, which is a large project, of course. Probably one of the larger seniors' homes that's ever been built in the area. We're going to do it by phases. We're using the life lease approach, and there's a couple of options for us right now. One is to take deposits from the life lease residents. We can do that. We could ask for 25% up front, 25% when the basement's in, 25% when the roof's on. That's one option. The other option is to what we did in the existing villages. We went out for construction financing from a conventional lender, and we had to come up with some of the money ourselves. So that's like what Harry explained. We went out to the community and said, are you willing to loan us some funds until the building's built? And I think we raised, Harry, if I'm not mistaken, $3 or $4 million, right? And
we were paying a little better than the normal interest rate too.
As Harry said, or as Sam said, we pay a bit more than the market to encourage people to invest with us, and that worked out really, really well.
So there are different financing possibilities that have worked and are in the process of potentially working, and it sounds like it's quite scalable and therefore not impossible to consider doing on a scale that might be appropriate for Elmvale.
Absolutely. As I said, our first phase was 66 units plus 20 semi-detached, and we used the same scenario to finance that. So,
next question's for Rosemary.
Ask her a hard question.
Oh, please. Oh, too bad, no hands are up. No, seriously, are there any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
I just have a comment that a lot of money has been raised for the hospices around Ontario. A lot of money has been raised. And I think there's every possibility of this community and with a professional fundraiser approaching corporations and businesses all over Ontario, that money is there.
Thank you for the words of encouragement. We appreciate it.
I'm
Anybody
sorry.
else?
Yeah. Does the Township of Springwater have any land in the Elmvale area that they can make available for this project?
All right, with Mayor like Alan will make a few comments at the end and probably address that. Anything else? I feel like an auctioneer. I'm sorry, there goes going once. I apologize.
I'm originally from Toronto, and I've lived in Elmvale since 1960. And I can remember when they first mentioned a nursing home in Elmvale. Most of us thought it was a pie in the sky thing, that we would never need a nursing home in Elmvale. And now we have a full nursing home, and I think the same sort of thing will happen with this type of thing. And also, the people from Toronto that have moved to the beach never figured that would be a seniors area either, because it was all teenagers at the beach at one time, but anyway, it's not like that now. But those people in Toronto that didn't know their neighbors now live at Wasaga Beach and all know their neighbors, and it's a community, everywhere you look, there's a community out there. And I think it's kind of a contagious thing, and I think once you live in a little community, you start thinking community, and I think it's got a powerful way to go.
Thank you. One of the things, we've done a lot of reading, and we haven't fallen asleep at midnight over the reading and the research that we've been doing. And you're 100% correct. Everything that we have read says social, community are two of the most important things for us as we get older. And the desire to stay in our own homes, which Sam referenced, we all have that desire. We all want to be independent, but then as we get older, it's amazing. My grass grows higher and the lawn gets bigger. And I'm going to reach the stage very soon, and quite frankly, I'm physically not going to be able to do it. Then you get depressed. Everything, all these little routine household chores we've always done and taken for granted. You used to be able to do them in 20 minutes, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm still working through the list. So you get depressed because you can't do what you've always done. And they're saying that this is one of the leading causes for people who get depressed, get very lonely, they don't want to go out, because life just becomes too burdensome for them. So the idea of this kind of life lease really works extremely well, and it's working, having wonderful, wonderful results. And Sid will tell you the same thing about Tallendale. We live longer and we enjoy it a whole lot more.
Well, I think that probably wraps up the question section. Now, the committee's all going to be here after the meeting, so if you've got something that you're wondering about, come up and talk to any one of us, and we'd be glad to try and tell you what we know anyway, which some days I think isn't very much. But anyway, okay, where did we get you? Doing okay? Good. Okay, now, I want to dwell again on these surveys. And if you want to stay in your seats and finish those surveys and put them in the box before you go, that's the handiest way of doing it. That's a good way to do it. If you can't, and you've got to take one home, be sure to take it back to the library. And so what I want to do next and this same survey that we handed out tonight is online. And if you look at the front page of the Springwater News, which Mike Jacobs did very well for us and charged us only a fraction of what he should have for a front page article like that. Right on the bottom, it gives you the website. It's SurveyMonkey, which is used by a lot of different organizations, and you can go on and you can fill the same survey out online. And, If you want to email your friends and tell them to do the same thing, just send them the link and they can fill out that survey as well. So I think now we're going to move on to the final comments, and I'd like to have some of the members of council just say a few words about what they think about our idea. And I think the only councillor elect we have here is George Cabral, and he's the councillor elect for Ward 1, which is where Elmvale's in. So George, if you want to say something.
Well, I guess I don't think I need the microphone. I'm only going to take it. I do.
Take the mic.
I'm certainly at that age where I'd really like to stay in our community, and I think, as I've heard here about Sarah Vista being a bit of a pipe dream at one time, and it certainly materialized. The community is growing, and I think families do like to stay together, and I think this would be the type of development that would be good for our community. From what I hear, there's a lot of people in a lot of places that are on waiting lists for senior living, be it assisted or be it independent. And I think this is a great opportunity and a great venture to get going here and see where the community can take it and what our residents actually want to see be developed. And with those things, I think you folks really are starting down the road to something that would be very beneficial for Elmvale and Springwater as a whole. That's my comments, at least anyway.
Thank you, George. And Mayor-elect, Mr. Donnell.
Thank you, Sam, and to group for putting this together and an awful lot of research and hard work you've done thus far. And thank you for coming out. This is a very impressive turnout, and obviously people are interested in the topic, and so you should be, because we're all getting older. This is a priority for me in the next 4 years, in getting a more seniors facility in Springwater Township. And I hope it will be, and I will work to convince council that it should be a priority to deal with. And I'm confident that, oops, I think we just lost it. Okay. I'm not done. Try this one? Oh, good, that's good. We'll get the right height here. It's something we need in Springwater, definitely. And I have already started in talking with, we didn't talk about County of Simcoe, but there are an awful lot of, well, there are significant seniors facilities in the County of Simcoe. There's a lot of experience there. I have already started talking with Jane Sinclair and Greg Bishop about the need for seniors facilities in Springwater, more of them. And I will continue to talk with them about that to find out what they've learned, because they've got a fair bit of expertise with the different facilities that exist in Simcoe County. So I'm definitely willing to and wanting to work with this group to find out more about the land possibilities that you have, and just get into some of the numbers, get down and tour Tollendale, which I will do, learn more about the Innisfil model, which I will do through you. I've got a financial background, as you're probably aware of, so I've been involved in a lot of startups, a lot of feasibility studies, a lot of pro formas, and I'd be willing and excited to work with you on this, because it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when we'll get facilities like this in this township. Already this group has been had some preliminary meetings with our planning department, Brent Spagnell. I talked to him about that, and so I know about one site, but I didn't know about the others. So I need to get up to speed a bit with and I will do that by meeting with you and then liaising with Brent, and then getting the new council. We haven't even met yet, which is being, the reason you got confused is because inauguration is here tomorrow night instead of the chamber, because so many people want to come to it that we had to use this lovely facility here. So we'll be getting inaugurated tomorrow night, so we're really official after tomorrow night. So we haven't had a first council meeting. That's happening on December 12th. But and definitely the initial meetings with planning have been receptive, and we're just wanting to learn more about it, and so that we can start to tighten up a possible plan. So I reiterate that the surveys are crucial. If you don't fill them out here and drop them out, don't take them home and put them on the side table and forget about it. Take them home and take a few others and get them fed back or do them online, because that's how these people who have been working so hard are going to get your input. And they can't start to really develop a model or answer the intelligent questions that have come here tonight until they find out what your wishes and serious possibilities are. So please make sure those surveys get spread out, filled out, and returned quickly. The doctor solution, we're working on that too. I can't tell you more about it, but we realize that having a doctor would be crucial in this equation. So it's a very interesting win that you got with the Tollendale down there and the doctor on site. There are some things in the works that I'm working on, and other members of council will be once we get together, but we know the need is there for a doctor here, and it's top of mind as well. And the financial institution, I mean, it sounds like this isn't rocket science. It isn't, we're not starting something that hasn't been accomplished before. I was pleased to hear the scalability of it. I think we need to get on a piece of land that's got the ability to grow and the ability to fill in the common area type facilities, but the whole thing is to get the right size and the right units based on the surveys that you fill out and return, and get the pro forma and the financing for that in place, and then make it scalable so it can be built. So I firmly believe it's not if, it's just when. So thank you very much, and I look forward to working with everybody on this going forward.
Well, I think that brings our meeting too much to a close, so just remain in your seats until the surveys are finished. Then you can go back and have some refreshments in the back corner, and then stand around and talk, and we're all here to talk with you. So once again, thank you for coming tonight. It's been a great response, and we're going to go from there.